And so the emotions are purified oftentimes as far as the list of occurrences that take place when you're dealing with the kinds of energies that you're dealing with in this kind of yoga, in this path, where energies are set in motion inside your sushumna, displacing the stored qualities of, and stored impressions and qualities of experience through just the displacement of energy. The emotions, being one of the wildest matrices inside the psychology, are more often than not the first to go, and go on these wild roller coaster rides. That's why it's always said that, when you read any yogic handbook, that you have to get a grasp on the forces of dispassion, be able to remove your sense of I and desire for results out of the psychological forces that drive you to action. Because that works fine and dandy when you're dealing with just things that you want to do and things that are consonant with what you think of yourself as I. But the first time something happens that is generates a friction or sets up a disturbance in our own personal view, that's disrupted by the relentless flow of eternity, is a part of our ego that will lash out emotionally because the universe is not reflecting our perfect concept of ourself, which is, of course, a confused view. And so the emotions, when they first run into these very profound forces that come from the depths of the creative, the disruption of the personal identity is total. And you'll oftentimes, you'll be in the deep psychology, deep folds of psychology, end up setting up arguments for the basis of the survival of the ego-driven I. And of course, they don't carry much weight, so the emotions start to get heated up, heated up, heated up. It's kind of a survival mechanism, because the emotions in a certain way are a very complex vector of the fight or flight syndrome anyway, the adrenaline-driven feeling. But because we become very complex beings, our emotions have become very complex, and we generate all kinds of complex, neurotic interpretations of reality to deal with the amount of information we're capable of taking in. All of that gets challenged when you run into a force like Shiva. And there's no feeling to it. One of the things that you got to get used to when you're dealing with that kind of force is there's no drama. It comes out of nothing. Completely saturates your being. And there's no opportunity to set up an argument because there's no other. It's yourself. So what is happening is the ego structures of mind are just being disrupted, and the tonal is struggling to find a new footing, taking into account the new injection of information that forces like Shiva generate. And that all amounts to emotional purification. That's the one thing you have to learn to get used to. All of you are still externally oriented completely. You're just beginning to catch the idea that it's all inside, and whatever you're seeing outside is bouncing off this inner mirror, and you're projecting it outward on the wings of objective view. One of these days that's going to go away and something else will be there. But it all comes up from inside. Do not think it's out there, because it is not. That is a guarantee. The actual dream chain, the name chain of who you really are, wait till you see that one. You won't believe that. You won't. I could tell you, and you wouldn't believe it. You'd think I was making it up. It's ridiculous. It's one of the rules. You have to see it for yourself. The vibrations of truth as it relates to the form in which the soul, the conditioned soul, rides in and arises from. Any form has an avenue to the truth. If it has the cognizance to be able to track back through itself and recognize its own nature. The path of the Sushumna, which is a very subtle level of consciousness in the space of the spine, in a dimensional shift, remember the four bodies, bone and marrow, energy, subtle fibers made of a very refined form of fluid, causal, which is not in, it has no body in time or space, but is the potentiality of all creation, and the supercausal, which is the self. From 3 to 4, the bodies are slotted out into 3 gates of consciousness: body, speech, and mind, which correlate to the 3 conditions of waking, sleep with dream, and dreamless sleep. We correlate to the 3 gunas, which are the rack on which the creation appears. The 4th state, the Turiya state, is the ocean of consciousness, ocean of scintillating blue, Chinmayi. The human form is capable of vibrating on the level of the Turiya. That is samadhi. You break out of the three conditioned states of mind. At first, it's very dramatic because it amounts as a total disruption of the inner dialogue, the description of the world. But it's possible to generate a description of the world that includes the state of the Turiya, which is where yoga amounts to. That's why yoga is such a good path. It is so filled with information that's true. It works. The principles inside yoga, in this kind of yoga, Siddha yoga, where the awakening occurs, the rhythm of the truth vibrates through the very structure of being at the level of form. The old term for the Siddha path used to be the marrow path, which I was kind of like, actually, I like that better because it arises, it speaks of the truth as it arises through bone, which is the hardest part of the body. Now, if you're an advanced yogi, in other words, you have come up with an identity of oneself at the level of mind, you see yourself as consciousness, and your identity and your description of self includes all aspects of form from spirit down, but has completely transcended the basis of consciousness. In other words, you don't rely on your body or a description of body 1 through 3 to consider yourself I. Yeah, it's just like anything else. You flicker in and out of the most advanced forms, just like you'll have shards of samadhi before you actually stabilize samadhi. You'll start sliding into samadhi before you've completed a lot of the work on the lower parts of your being, but you'll be able to just will yourself into it for a while, and eventually this becomes the norm, and that just goes away. It's not just a perfect 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1 through 100. You're all over the place, based on ability.